So Fergus, can you tell me a bit about the formation of your new company?
Yeah, a lot of us have been in the industry for a long time, and we all worked at Interplay, a good portion of Obsidian Entertainment. And so I ended up leaving Interplay. I ran Black House Studios there for about 7 years, and I left last April. And we knew we wanted to start a new company. It was sort of, we knew it was time to, like, if we didn't start a company now, we probably wouldn't. We'd all kind of spread to the four winds and also get a little older. And but that's, it seems to be like less of a good idea when you get older. Everyone has kids and mortgages and all that kind of stuff. Not that we don't have it now, but it seemed like a bigger deal then. So we all decided it would be probably a good thing to start our own company. And luckily, in being at Black Isle and Interplay and being there for so long, that we've met a lot of people in the industry. And luckily, I always say luckily a lot in this because I think it was just not random chance, but it was all pretty good luck. I knew Simon Jeffrey from who was the former president of LucasArts, and Ray and Greg from BioWare, and I found out that they weren't going to be doing Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, and so Simon called me and said, "Hey, do you want to do the game?" And we were thinking at the time actually of a completely different game for them, like a little bit more hardcore of an RPG. And I was like, "Yeah." And so we started talking. We had a meeting last E3, so May of last E3, and then we got going in August and with a contract, and we moved into our office in September, around right at the end of August, early September, and that's how we got going.
So how did you get involved with Neverwinter Nights 2?
Well, interestingly enough, I launched the original Neverwinter at Black Isle with BioWare. It's kind of a weird little story. I was the producer on BioWare's first game, which was Shattered Steel. It was like a mech game. And they also had another team at the time, and that was the team that was starting to work on Baldur's Gate. But we were still finishing up Shattered Steel, and they still had the Shattered Steel team. Trent Oster, who's the producer on Neverwinter, was the producer for Shattered Steel. And we were talking about what to do next, and we actually started working on Shattered Steel too. There was a contract, and we actually had the first prototype done and all that kind of thing. And everyone just thought, Shattered Steel didn't sell as well. So, is that what we want to do? And Brian Fargo kind of wanted more D&D products. It was at that point, like, it was sort of the crossover time for me doing action games to doing RPGs. And I'm like, well, we should do more RPGs. And Trent was into it. So me and Ray, Musica, Greg Zeschuk, and Trent talked a lot, like, what do we want to do? And so we came up with, and at the time, like, the Quake 2 mod community was huge. And we're like, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could get a mod community, but with an RPG? And that was how kind of Neverwinter started there. And so that was kind of my involvement early on. And then we produced it for a while, and then stuff happens. And then we weren't involved with it anymore, and Atari took it over. Well, and then in there somewhere else, I had met John Haidt, who then became in charge of all the D&D games. And so when we left, one of the games we pitched when we left Black Isle, we pitched Neverwinter 2. And I don't think Atari was ready yet to get it going, and they were kind of thinking about where they wanted it to go. Did they, and I think it's a good thing to think about from time to time, is like, is the kind of game a game was what it is that you want to make it the next time? Because sometimes making the sequel the way the original one doesn't make sense. And so they were thinking about that for a long time. And then we started talking, I would say, in late last year, January this year, about, hey, why don't we do it? And like for real this time. And so we started working. So we started talking. Eventually, we came to an agreement and got involved again.
That's quite a story. When does the novelization come?
I know it is. It seems like I think as you are in this industry longer and longer, your stories get longer and longer. I don't know if they get better, but they get longer.
So what are some of the elements of the original Neverwinter that you want to retain in Neverwinter Nights 2?
I think that the best way to answer that is the spirit of Neverwinter. And the spirit of Neverwinter is to have a great single-player campaign, great multiplayer, and great tools for the mod community. And whatever we do, we have to kind of retain those three things, because that's, I think, why it's successful. It's something that people could play off the shelf, play with their friends, and then make things for their friends. And if we screwed that up, then it wouldn't be a sequel to Neverwinter.
So what are the things Obsidian's going to bring to the series?
Well, I think a lot of it is we're kind of going to bring the experiences that we have. Like, we've worked on a lot of single-player RPGs. We worked on Torment and Fallout and a lot of other things, Icewind Dale series. And so we're kind of taking all those experiences, I mean, as well with KOTOR 2, and taking all those experiences and applying them to like the single player game. And luckily Atari's kind of given us enough time to really spend what time a lot of time on the single player game and making it much more of something that I think people will appreciate right out of the box. So we'll do that. And, and then when it comes to the multiplayer and the tools, I mean, we've been working on RPG tools for as long as we've been working on single player RPGs. So we have a lot of knowledge when it comes to tools. Now we're not going to change the tools drastically, but we definitely want to refine them and bring anything that we can from the stuff that we're creating into the tools. And we hope that we can make the tools a little easier to use. We're probably going to stay with a system that's tile-like or the tile system, just because there's a lot of arguments right now on our boards about whether it should be tiled or not. Like, tiled sucks. No, it doesn't. Tiled sucks. No, it doesn't. It's really one of those arguments. And but we think it's good because it does let people put down an area quickly, and then they see the results of it, and then it gives them incentive to continue. If it was more complicated and that kind of thing, they had to go to Gmax or something like that, I don't think you'd see so many modules. The other argument is, like, you see a lot of crappy modules. And I think, well, okay, so you see some crappy modules, but I think it does help that it's easy to get into.
That's one of the biggest complaints about the tools, is that people think they're powerful, but they're just not very accessible. What are some of the things that you would do to make them easier to use?
Well, I think in some ways there needs to be a tutorial system. In other words, so people can be led through it. Like, I can create a textured ball in Max because, I'm not an artist by any stretch of the means, but I can get my way around Max if I need to, because there's tutorials. I just go up and click a tutorial, and then I can get through it. And so I think there needs to be a better tutorial system. What we're also going to look into is having sort of a wizard system, in that I want to create a module. What kind of program module do you want to create? Who do you want in it? How many areas do you want it? What kind of areas do you want? And kind of go through this 20 question type thing. So it kind of builds a module for two reasons. One, so people can kind of make in essence, a randomized dungeon module very quickly to play with their friends. And also so it's something that they started themselves, and it's in there and it's all set up so that they can then just start clicking on things and changing things that they've already named and created. And that, I think that'll kind of reduce the barrier of entry a little bit, just because it's something that they chose to be that way. It's not like loading up a module, someone else's module. Like, it's their module, now they can start fiddling with it.
Visually, you're using the same engine, but you have a lot of enhancements planned. What are some of those?
Well, the big thing that, a lot of people look at Neverwinter, like, it looked good for coming out in 2002. It can't look that way when it comes out in 2006. So we know that in one of our big focuses of the project is, we knew that coming up front. So we're basically going to be ripping out the graphics and replacing it. On twofold. One, you probably won't see a single piece of art from the original game, and that's and not because some of it might not fit, but but more so because since we're changing everything, it won't work with the new stuff. But I don't know. I could go through the buzzword list, but the basic thing is, we're going to be putting in normal mapping and per pixel lighting and a lot more lighting and graphical effects to make you feel like you're in a fantasy world.
And is it true you're starting the experience cap over for 2?
Yeah, well, kind of what we thought is, like, a lot of people took their character from the original campaigns through the 2 expansions. They're like 30th level, and they're killing gods and stuff. And, so I think it's time to reset it and bring it back so you can have, you could tell a story after 30th level. It just would be a little hard. So so what we want to do is kind of bring it back. And we also kind of want to refocus the game a little bit. And we want to kind of bring the person back to Neverwinter, reintroduce them to Neverwinter, and make a lot of the story about Neverwinter. Make it a interesting city, and making it an evolving city. Have important people in it, important people that the player wants to meet and talk to, and wants to do things for, not just for the sake of getting experience points, but for the sake of getting a pat on the back. And that's a lot of what we want to reintroduce to, I think, RPGs as a whole right now, is the idea that it's not just about the next experience point. It's not just about the next +4 sword. It's about what you're doing in the world and how you're doing it. And, and I think that's a little bit from what we've been doing, what we saw BioWare do on KOTOR and what we're doing on KOTOR 2. Like, how do you do a light side and a dark side? It's not just, like, a dark side's evil, but it's not just evil. It's about something else. And so to give those choices to the player. And then a lot, KOTOR and KOTOR 2 is also about a lot of like really important characters that came into the beginning of the story and stayed for the whole story. And so we want to do that. So we're kind of saying, we've told the designers and talking to designers, like, so you guys are going to normally create like 500 speaking characters. Well, what happens if you created 250 that, used as many nodes of dialogue, that you tried to keep in the story from the first minute to the last minute? Wouldn't that make it a better world? And so that's kind of what we're focusing on.
Is there any fear that some of the players of the expansion packs will miss the prestige classes? Because that was one of the coolest features about those.
Yeah. I guess that's the best way to answer that. I mean, our producer at Atari, Dorian Richard, was and is, I think, still a little concerned about that. Like, she still wants to play as a player. She would love to continue playing her character from Hordes of the Underdark. And I think the thing is, we've done it before. Like, we've reset people a number of times, like Fallout 2 to Fallout 1 from to Fallout 2. You had a new character. People bitched a bit, but then they got into the story and everything was fine. Icewind Dale 1, Icewind Dale 2, and that kind of thing. So I think there's precedent for doing it. I think there still will be some bitching, but I think in the long run, people will get more out of the game than if we tried to make those characters work.
So you just mentioned that you're trying to put an emphasis on Neverwinter as a location and introduce a bunch of characters people might know from the lore. Can you talk about any of that now?
No. No, because the one thing is because we really started in earnest on the game in July 1st. Like, we've been kind of working intermittently on it before then, but we really got it, and then we pretty much turned all our story stuff in on August 1st. So we're waiting for Ed, who's in the other room, to approve it. So so until then, we can't really go into details. I mean, what I could say is that if there's someone prominent in the Forgotten Realms lore, and they make sense to the story, they'll probably be in the game. But if it was someone that was maybe just introduced in Neverwinter Nights, the computer game, we'll carry them over if it makes sense. But we're not trying to just bring people over just to say that we can.
So why don't you give Neverwinter fans a hook on why they should be excited that you're making this game?
Well, I think Neverwinter fans should be excited that we're making the game because we made a lot of these. I mean, and we've been pretty good at it. And I think that because I've been dealing with this a lot, I've got a lot of emails from a lot of people like wanting us to do our own original IP and do any number, like, why are you just being Bio Junior is what they've been calling us, or the Bio Janitors. I think is what people have been calling us. And it's great to get emails like that in the morning. But kind of what I was telling people, and I've argued with a number of people on our boards, is that, look, we've made a lot of D&D games. We know the rules. We've made a lot of single-player games, which is some of your criticisms of the first game. And we're not going to screw up the multiplayer, the toolset, all that kind of stuff. So what's the problem? You know what I mean? And so that's not necessarily to get people excited, but that's at least, and then my response, I don't get many responses to that because I don't think there is a response. But I think what people should be excited about is that, they're going to get a rich, full, robust single-player game. And then that's going to carry over all those cool things that we're going to have to add to make that all work are going to carry over into multiplayer, and they're going to carry over into the tool set. And bringing that all together, and what that means is that it's still going to be Neverwinter. It's not going to be some kind of sequel that left something hanging. And so it's going to be a full package just like it was last time, with pretty much everything refined and a whole new graphics system.